My wife cheated. I caught her, and my revenge was swift and painful for both of us. After 2 decades of marriage, my wife, a 39-year-old mother to our 2 daughters, and the love of my life, surprised me by announcing she was going on a date with a coworker tomorrow night. Sophia and I tied the knot as teenagers, and within a year of dating, she became pregnant with our first daughter. Despite our young start, we were deeply in love, married soon after, and welcomed our first child into the world 7 months later. Our marriage has been wonderful, filled with love, and blessed with 2 beautiful children who adore both of us. My landscaping business took off, growing into a multi-million-dollar venture, providing us with a fulfilling life beyond our dreams. Hearing such news from my wife caught me completely off guard, as she explained her unhappiness and depression since the kids left for college. It hit me like a ton of bricks. In my eyes, our marriage was perfect, so this revelation shook me to the core. Sophia confided in me about her close friendship with Nathan, from accounting, who had been supporting her through her struggles, a fact previously unknown to me. It was strange because she hadn't mentioned feeling depressed or upset at all. The idea of my wife seeking emotional support from another man was painful, but learning she wanted to be mentally involved with him was devastating. It turned out Nathan was married with 3 children and presented himself as a counselor, when in reality, he was a predator. He preyed on attractive married women, knowing they were vulnerable, and sought no strings attached encounters. Ben, I can't hide this from you, and I hope you understand, but I need to do this for myself. I know it sounds selfish, but give me this one night to see how it goes, she said. I was furious and wanted to shout, but I knew my wife well enough to anticipate this. Once she made up her mind, there was no turning back. When she finished her revelation, I sat there silently staring at her, as she nervously occupied the love seat across from me. The silence was heavy, as I resisted the urge to speak. Instead, I calmly finished my scotch, stood up, and headed for the door. Ben, don't ignore me. Stop acting like a child. This is happening, and I needed to tell you before anything occurred. I would never cheat on you, and I want you to know everything that happens. We've always been honest with each other, and I'll never deceive you, she said. I stood there gazing at her, likely with an expression of utter disbelief, as she curled into a ball, knees to her chest. Without a word, I ascended to our bedroom, packed 2 days' worth of clothes and toiletries, and then, again without speaking, strode past Sophia and out to my car in the garage. She trailed behind, crying out as I passed her, Please Ben, don't leave. Everything will be okay. It's just one date, that's all, and it'll be over soon. Just one night. Can't you give me that?" After 20 years, I shook my head as I drove off, incredulous at her pleas. That Thursday evening, I checked into the Ritz-Carlton. Yes, the Ritz-Carlton for $100 a night, and I didn't care if I was going to suffer. Please, I'd at least enjoy my accommodations. The calls and texts flooded in immediately, but after sending one final text, I blocked her number. I simply informed her I wouldn't be in touch until returning home on Saturday after her betrayal. I'm certain those words stung. The following day at work, I instructed my secretary to block any calls from my wife and informed security not to allow her into the building. My plan was in motion, and I wouldn't let anything derail it. So, I'm Ben Sanders, a man of action at work and among my friends. I'm the man in charge, the one who gets things done. People rely on me for leadership because they know I deliver on my promises. At home I've adopted a passive, easygoing demeanor, aiming to please and distance myself from my macho alter ego. It's been effective for the past 2 decades, but it appears I underestimated its impact. Looking back, I realized I should have been more assertive and composed in my domestic life, but my love for Sophia led me to treat her like royalty. I recall coming across a quote once and laughing at it, "But I'm not laughing now. Treat her like a queen, and she will treat you like a servant." Those words have become my reality, but I refuse to accept it. On Friday morning, I reached out to my brother, a detective in Miami, seeking assistance. After explaining my needs, he connected me with one of his associates, Peter Clift, a private investigator. "Peter, it's Sergeant Davis. How have you been, buddy? Listen, my brother's on the line and he needs your help tonight. I'm cashing in a favor and need you to assign someone to tail his wife tonight. Specifically, we need to find out who she's meeting and gather as much intel on this guy. By Saturday morning, I want you to run his license plates, get his home address and phone number, and text it to me tonight. We also need some photos of the couple. You know the drill, the photos can wait until tomorrow, but tonight we're just after the guy's info. One night was so and you and trying." Peter assured him, "Davis, I know this is last minute, but I owe you big time. I'll make it happen. You want the guy's address and phone number tonight, as soon as possible, and the rest of the photos and intel tomorrow. What are we working with here? Please, that'll do for now. I'll send over the wife's address, her departure time, and her date's first name. I've been told he works with her at Broker Unlimited, and his name's Nathan, so it shouldn't be too hard for you, buddy. She's back home by 5 p.m., but we're unsure of the date's start time. So you'll need a man posted outside the house before 5 p.m. to tail her when he picks her up. That's all we need. Send me the wife's address, and I'll handle the rest. Peter assured him again. Got it, I'll send you everything. Ben listened intently to the conversation, grinning as his brother hung up. His plan was falling into place, poised to surprise his unsuspecting wife. With sudden change in demeanor, Sophia, perhaps we should rethink this. I've been reflecting on Ben's request for me not to go out with you. I feel guilty, like I've already let him down, she admitted, a solitary tear tracing her cheek. Quick to respond, Tommy moved to the couch to console her. With his expertise in assuaging worries and manipulating situations, he viewed this as an opportunity. Skilled in navigating the intricacies of women's emotions, he employed his charm and persuasive abilities to influence their decisions. For Tommy, Sophia's hesitation presented a challenge to conquer rather than a boundary to respect. It's all right, Sophia. We don't have to go through with this, and I completely understand, he reassured, his tone steady and comforting. But you've never felt comfortable going out alone, even for a simple dinner or movie. He just doesn't realize we're merely friends. Men like him want to shield their wives from potential threats, but if he knew how much I value our friendship, I'm sure he wouldn't object. I'm expressing his disappointment, yet showing understanding. Tawny continued, I'll admit I'm disappointed we won't be spending the evening together, but I get it. I was truly looking forward to your company, and trying out that new restaurant. Capitalizing on the moment, he suggested an alternative. Hey, here's an idea, why don't we have a nice dinner, and then I'll take you home. Surely he wouldn't mind you having dinner with a friend. His relaxed demeanor, and the offer of a harmless, straightforward dinner, were sufficient to sway Sophia's resolve. Already dressed for the occasion and deep down desiring companionship and new experiences, Tommy's manipulative tactics effectively reassured her. He convinced Sophia that dinner was innocuous, despite her initial doubts and the emotional turmoil regarding her husband Ben. At 7 p.m., Peter observed the couple departing and heading to a downtown restaurant, promptly informing Davis and JN of their whereabouts. Throughout the evening, he kept them updated, and capturing photos was effortless for Peter, who spent the next 4 hours snapping pictures of them at dinner, holding hands, entering the dance club, dancing together, kissing, and portraying themselves as a loving couple. He also recorded several videos of them slow dancing while Tommy touched her rear, fondled her breast, and kissed her on the dance floor. Peter forwarded all the visuals before sunrise the following morning. At exactly 8 a.m., Ben phoned Sophia's father, Brian, a longtime friend and golfing buddy, to deliver the unfortunate news. Hello Brian, it's Ben. Are we still golfing on Sunday? I'm not sure, Brian, but I have some troubling news. Currently, your daughter is on a date with a coworker. Despite my belief that everything was fine in our relationship, she expressed the need for more and decided to see this man. I love you and Maggie, but I refuse to tolerate this. And I consider our marriage over. She violated our marital agreement, and I cannot forgive her betrayal. I just want you to be aware of the circumstances leading up to what will follow. I'm sorry it had to come to this. Jan, are you telling me she's seeing someone else? Are you sure? That doesn't sound like my daughter. Brian, I have a private investigator currently observing them at dinner. She's with a man as we speak, betraying me, our marriage, and our children. I'm sorry this is painful for me, but I respect you and felt you should know the truth. John, I'm so sorry, please don't do anything rash. I know she loves you, and perhaps you both can resolve this. I'm sorry, Brian. I've made up my mind. I'll call you soon. Let's reschedule for next Sunday. It looks like this weekend is going to be rough. Armed with the cheater's address obtained from the investigator, Ben drove the 20 minutes to Tommy's residence to meet with Stella, his wife. She appeared puzzled when Ben inquired if she was Mrs. Brooks, Tommy's wife. The woman, a mother of 3 in her 30s, answered the door clad in tight jeans and a lace top that accentuated her ample bosom. Despite the suggestive attire, Ben averted his gaze, focusing on her eyes to avoid any awkwardness. Are you Mrs. Brooks, Tommy's wife? He asked. Yes. Is he okay? She responded. He's in excellent hands, trust me. He works with my wife. May I come in for a moment? They settled in the living room as Ben delivered the news. Mrs. Brooks, I regret to inform you that at this very moment, your devoted husband Tommy and my soon-to-be ex-wife are out on a date. Yes, my dear wife confided in me just yesterday that she needed to spread her wings, and your kind husband has been so supportive that she felt compelled to repay his kindness. Are you certain you have the right man? My Tommy is at his Friday night card game. Mrs. Brooks, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't certain. My private investigator is currently monitoring them. I'll have photos and videos to share with you, but I felt it was important for you to know. I left her in tears, feeling terrible knowing that their affair had probably shattered their marriages, but that's the game Tommy Boy chose to play. The next morning, after his breakfast arrived, Ben sat back and poured a cup of the hotel's signature coffee, enjoying the aroma. He smiled, relaxing in the plush bed. However, his comfort swiftly turned to disgust and bitterness as he opened the photos from the investigator on his phone. The only silver lining was that Sophia had returned home by 1 a.m., and there was no sexual encounter that night. Ben's anger surged as he witnessed his wife's betrayal. Tears welled in his eyes as he viewed the video of them kissing, with her lover's hand on her buttocks. It shattered any hope for reconciliation. He also noted her wearing stockings for her paramour, recalling her reaction when he had gifted her the same item months ago. Her betrayal and disrespect were unbearable. Overwhelmed by humiliation and a sense of inadequacy, his initial sorrow morphed back into fury. Tommy had successfully persuaded Helen to extend their date beyond dinner, accompanying him to his preferred dance club. That this decision proved to be her downfall in the marriage, and deep down she recognized its wrongness before agreeing, but she desired this experience as a one-time occurrence. John, with tears in his eyes, experienced a sadness unprecedented in his life. He had wept when his mother passed away, and shed tears for departed friends, yet this was a uniquely gripping pain. Watching the video for the third time, he paused at the moment when Tommy was touching his wife. He cried out in frustration, vowing retribution. Considering everything, he concluded that she may not have engaged in intercourse with him, but her actions were unacceptable, disrespectful, hurtful, and a complete betrayal of their marriage. On Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m., John rented with Candy at the hotel, spending the next 2 hours acquainting themselves. John clearly outlined his intentions, and Candy proved to be the ideal candidate for his plan. They returned to his home a little after 4 p.m., and were in bed by 5 p.m. Before climbing into bed, John placed the letter he had written for Helen, which read, "Helen, last night you shattered our marriage agreement and vows, not to mention my heart. The moment you violated that agreement, I stopped viewing us as married. Yes, legally we're still bound. But the agreement is void, and we're both free to live as we wish. I intend to occupy the master bedroom since this is my house. You're free to use any other rooms, but my bed is off limits to you. Your belongings are in the guest rooms. I ask that you respect my personal space. You've achieved what you sought, your independence, and now I have mine. I hope you're satisfied with your choice and your new life. That love, your former husband, John." He removed his wedding band and laid it at the top of the letter on the front door, holding it at eye level. He then took one of his collector's knives and drove the blade through the center of the piercing the letter and embedding it deep into the wooden door. This was to be the first thing Helen saw upon her return home that night. At precisely 10 p.m., when Helen arrived back from her job, the sight of the knife embedded in the door alarmed her. Naturally, such a sight would unsettle anyone. She moved toward the door cautiously, scanning for any additional anomalies. Drawing nearer, she spotted the note meant for her pinned under John's wedding band. Her pulse quickened, and tears began streaming down her face as she absorbed the contents of the letter. With the ring and letter in her hand, she ran into the house, looking for John to tell him she didn't want him to leave her. She called out his name in the dark house as she stood in the hallway, sobbing. The house was quiet except for some sounds coming from the bedroom. She walked up the stairs and listened at the door to the sounds of moaning. Opening the door in anger, she found a young woman riding her husband cowboy style. She stood in front of the bed in shock, watching this young girl riding her husband in their marital bed. Helen was angry beyond words and screamed at her husband. "How could you?" she screamed as she ran out of the house into her car. And yet, overwhelmed with the emotion and tears flowing down her face, Helen sought refuge at her sister Mary's house. Once she regained her composure and the tears receded, she recounted the painful discovery of her husband's infidelity in their bed, expressing uncertainty about where to turn. Mary attempted to offer comfort and reassurance, expressing disbelief at the situation. "This doesn't sound like John. I can't fathom him cheating on you. He's always been so loving and respectful toward you. I've even envied the affection he's shown you. This is completely out of character. Is anything happened recently that might explain this? In a tearful, subdued tone, Helen confessed, I don't know. Maybe it's because I went out with someone from work last night, or that's the only thing I can think of. Went out with whom? Mary inquired. With just a coworker. It was merely dinner and dancing, nothing more, Helen clarified. Seeking further clarification, Mary incredulously asked, so you went out with another man, leaving John alone at home, and you believe it was just an innocent night out? Well, yes, but it sounds worse when you phrase it like that, Helen admitted. Shocked and angered, Mary criticized Helen's actions. Now understanding why John was with another woman, she expressed no sympathy for Helen's plight. As Helen sobbed harder, she showed Mary the note she found attached to their door. Mary solemnly acknowledged Helen's mistake, but suggesting it might have jeopardized her marriage due to a rash decision. She offered Helen a place to stay for the night, but urged her to attempt reconciliation with John the next day, though she doubted it would alter the situation. Mary warned Helen to prepare for the worst. Noting that her own husband would have reacted similarly to such indiscretion, she acknowledged that John had been even more devoted than her own spouse. Helen spent the night alone in Mary's guest room, shedding tears well into the late morning and getting very little sleep. Mary texted John, requesting an immediate call back. Aware of Mary's purpose, John promptly returned her call. Hi Mary, what's going on? He greeted. Hello John, my foolish sister is here and disclosed what she did in the events at your house last night. I don't blame you one bit, and I must say your retaliation was swift, Mary remarked with a brief chuckle. Yep, you know me, Mary. I don't tolerate nonsense, John replied. I understand, John. Look, I know she made a mistake, but she's a wreck, and I can't deal with her like this. You two need to hash this out tomorrow. I don't know if you're actually kicking her out, and I wouldn't blame you, but if she hasn't gone all the way with this guy, maybe there's a chance to salvage things. Perhaps counseling could help. Or maybe we should consider shock therapy for her defective brain. Anyway, please allow her to come back and talk tomorrow. Of course she's welcome back, Mary. This is still her home, and I haven't thrown her out. However, she won't be with me while she's here. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm deeply hurt by her betrayal. I'll hear her out, but I can't make any promises about the future right now. I feel as much hatred toward her as I do love. The pain is overwhelming my emotions at the moment. It would take a miracle for me to consider taking her back, but you already know that. You're the sensible one in the family. I can't believe my sister thought you'd be okay with her seeing some other guy. What a fool. Just be patient and remember she loves you. Hopefully she hasn't gone too far with that idiot, Mary expressed. Thanks, Mary. Send her home whenever she wants, John concluded. Thanks, Mary. You're the best. You know it, and I know it, Mary said with a laugh. Love you, John responded. Goodbye. Sunday at noon, I returned from the gym to find Helen's car in the driveway. She was seated at the kitchen table attempting a smile. You know, we're not getting a divorce. We can work this out, because we love each other, she said. I remained silent, brewed a cup of coffee, and positioned myself across from Helen, who was nervously twiddling her fingers on her lap.